Good evening, I'm Kathy Lewis. It's good to be with you on Friday night, Public Affairs Night on WHRO TV 15 and Digital 15-1. Joining the Friday night lineup with programs like Washington Week, Bill Moyer's Journal, Now, and Tavis Smiley, we knew we had to bring you a show worth your time, a show about issues that aren't getting their due elsewhere. In short, we knew we had to bring you a show about what matters. Some of our conversations will focus on a moment in time and its meaning and context. Such a moment came last month at the College of William and Mary when the embattled President Gene Nichol announced his immediate resignation. Tonight, a conversation with Gene Nichol. First, Lisa Godley has a look at the timeline of Gene Nichol's presidency.
Gene Nichol grasped the reins as the 26th president of the College of William and Mary in July of 2005. 4 months prior, the Board of Visitors had chosen the William and Mary law professor by unanimous vote. Nichol wasted no time bringing about change. On August 26, less than 2 months at the helm, he announced Gateway, an aggressive scholarship program that would ensure more lower-income students could get their degrees from the College of William and Mary. Nichol's decision-making was questioned in October 2006 when he decided to remove the Wren Cross from the chapel where it had been permanently displayed for decades. He defended his decision as an attempt to make people of all religions feel included during events held in the facility. 5 months later, in March of 2007, a presidential committee chose to return the cross to Wren Chapel as an artifact in a glass case with a plaque explaining its historical significance. In February of 2008, another controversy when Nichol announced a sex workers' art show to take place on campus. In a letter to the William and Mary community, Nichol said, quote, "To stop production because I found it offensive or unappealing would have violated both the First Amendment and the traditions of openness and inquiry that sustain great universities." 4 days later, on February 8th, the Board of Visitors decided that Nichol's contract would not be renewed and informed Nichol of their decision 2 days later. On February 12th, Gene Nichol resigned.
And Gene Nichol joins us tonight on What Matters. Thanks very much for being with us tonight.
It's good to see you, Kathy.
I know you've had lots of opportunities to talk. I'm guessing your phone has fairly rung off the hook in the wake of what's happened.
One doesn't want for opportunities to talk.
Indeed. So I'm wondering why you decided to accept this opportunity.
Well, for one thing, I have great regard for you, and I think you do a terrific job. I agreed to do this some time ago. As you know, I must admit that I thought the controversies over my presidency would have sort of fallen more silent by now. The truth of it is, though, I tell you, watching that intro, there's the Chinese saying of "May you live in interesting times." I'm not sure I haven't lived in times too interesting or interesting enough. I explained and felt compelled to, when I resigned, why I made that unusual decision. I explained that I had not been renewed and that I was going to resign immediately. I indicated as clearly as I could, I hope as thoughtfully as I could, why I thought that happened, why I believe that happened, why I still believe that happened. Why I was taking the further step of resigning immediately. I thought I owed that to the university community that I care so much about. And there's been a lot of discussion about it. God knows, from many, many different directions. I don't have, frankly, a lot to add to that. What is important to me now, or what I am focusing on now, much more powerfully, as I prepare to leave William and Mary and leave Williamsburg. My wife and I have accepted appointments at the University of North Carolina, which is something of a homecoming for us. But as that comes close, and I think about the remarkable students and faculty members and staff members that I've worked with over these last 3 years, the really singular character of the institution of the College of William and Mary, and how much I'm going to miss it, what working with them has meant to me. to tell you the truth, I'm much more moved to think and talk about that than these other matters. Now, that poses the dilemma that I guess I'm in the bad position of being interesting for one reason or set of reasons and interested in another, and that's a challenge. But thinking now about leaving the college and thinking also about what a singular place it is, those are the largest matters on my mind right now.
And I promise we'll talk about those, because there's some important points to be made around that. Yesterday there was a letter released by the Board of Visitors indicating that the decision around your future was around performance and not around ideology. And so as you watched that tape and as you think about this latest development this week, what do you want people to know about the last 12 to 16 months or so?
That's a long question, or at least one calling for a long answer. I know there are these disagreements or arguments about the reason for my departure. I have said very clearly what I believe those reasons were, and I still believe that. So I likely don't agree with the verdicts as presented. But the important thing now, it seems to me, but for me personally, I am excited and enthusiastic about the work that I think I will be able to do in the years ahead for the college, which is, of course, much more important. The carrying forward of a set of vital issues and interests there, which I'm very hopeful will happen. I really hope that it does. I think that's the most crucial thing. The future for these young women and men, the strength of the faculty at the college. I have thought for a long time that the major part of my job was trying to help these young women and men understand that their horizons can be expanded, to sort of change their view of the possible. And I think we had at least some success in that. I think that is the potent goal of higher education. It's its challenge and its marvelous legacy. And when I think about what these young women and men will be able to accomplish, what this really distinctive faculty in terms of its culture of teaching through research, which is a real hallmark of the College of William and Mary. It can leave one optimistic, but also, modestly heartbroken for me. I'm going to miss them very much. I'm going to miss the people who live, work, study, and teach at the College of William and Mary are a remarkable assemblage, one that has had a larger impact on me, I think, than anything, certainly in my professional life. So I'm full of sadness about leaving them, but wishing this institution all the great challenge that it deserves, all the great possibility that it deserves, and I know what will be all the great accomplishment that it deserves. So those are my principal responses.
Yeah, and it's been very interesting to watch the response that's come out of you. You talked about the students. They're sort of all over the map, but the one thing you come away with is that these are very bright men and women who are able to articulate their positions pretty well, whatever their positions are. And so it does sort of lead one to believe that there is a lot of intellectual rigor going on at the College of William and Mary.
An unbelievable amount. Yeah. And I think that what the students at William and Mary can give you a great deal of faith about the future itself, just like you said, Kathy, about this generation. And most pointedly, a great deal of faith for the future of the college itself and the attainment of the college. I was a law school dean for a long time before I became a university president, and I've always had strong, close working relationships with the students in law school. But it's a little different in law school. They are preparing to enter a profession. They are looking for mentors, but it's a more discreet process. the relationship which can exist between a university president, at least at a small, intimate place like the College of William and Mary, and undergraduates, I'm not sure I knew what I was getting into on that front, but it is remarkable and astonishing. I don't think I could encapsulate very easily what it is. If law students are looking for mentors to enter a profession, undergraduates are engaged in a much more unwieldy endeavor. But I tell you what, the inspiration which I think I enjoyed at the hands of working with the students of the College of William and Mary is like nothing I've ever seen before.
I'm imagining that the support that the very specific and dramatic support you got from a lot of members of the student body had to be a comfort in what was, by any read of the email and internet traffic on this, a pretty horrifying personal moment for you and for your family. I was really struck by the viciousness of some of the commentary around this. It seemed to have crossed a line, or it seemed to have...
You wouldn't get a disagreement from me on that.
I don't mean crossed a line in the sense that, what I mean is it seemed to have been something that really was not something we're accustomed to seeing around these kinds of issues.
Involvement in a strong controversy like this, or series of controversies, has complicated results. One of which you just mentioned, that is the strength of support that my family and I received from the student body, from the faculty, from the staff, and really, frankly, I think from most alumni, was among the most touching experiences of my life. The night of my resignation, you've seen that. There were, I don't know what it was, a couple thousand students on the doorstep. William and Mary is not a large place, so that's a pretty remarkable feat. And even the continuing experiences we've had on the campus since then have been sort of soul satisfying, I have to say. It's also true, as your question indicates, that there have been a dark side of this. There has been viciousness in these issues, which I wouldn't have anticipated, or I hadn't seen anything like that before. It's complicated to comment on it. I'm obviously immensely biased about commenting on it. I will, and I don't think, as you said, did it cross the line? Well, it's hard to tell where such a line is when you're a public figure and you take on these public roles and missions. You do it knowingly and willingly, which I did. I'd say if you have a hard time drawing a line generally, you could easily draw the line that, look, you don't do this to the kids and the family. They didn't take on this.
But it's one thing to take you on,
sure.
Quite another thing to take on your wife and your children.
That's right.
Yeah.
I decided to accept the offer to become the president of the College of William and Mary. My wife didn't do that. My daughters didn't do that. So I think surely you could draw a line there. I know there's a theory for that. That is, if you're trying to sort of run the guy out and make things so miserable that you want to leave on your own, then that's what you do. But I think you could conclude that that's unworthy, even if we have a hard time drawing the line about the rest.
As you think about college presidents, the college presidency business and that role, one of the things we know from the research from folks in the field says that we will see increasingly shorter tenures for college presidents, that we will see situations where college presidents will have multiple presidencies during their career instead of one from which they retire. So I wonder, from this unique vantage point, what advice would you have for other people who find themselves entertaining the possibility of a college search, or who find themselves thinking this is something they'd like to do?
Maybe I shouldn't.
Maybe that's the book.
I'm not the person to offer advice on that. And I think I'm also not the person to draw broad conclusions about the future of university presidencies. I'm I have worked for a long time in a lot of different ventures on sets of issues that are close to my heart, that I believe in very powerfully. I realized even earlier in life that sometimes doing that, sometimes pressing hard on matters which you think are of vital importance, will create both wonderful friends and very powerful and enthusiastic and energetic adversaries. You could sort of paraphrase this old Ibsen quote: when you go out to fight for justice or your vision of justice, don't wear your best trousers. And I understand in that determination that there are difficulties, and that Frank Porter Graham, who was a great president of the University of North Carolina, said that he had paid the cost of having taken sides. And there is something to that. My own view is the alternative is withdrawing from the important matters and issues of the day, refusing to take a position on anything, administering by never annoying anyone, never taking a discernible position on any vital matter. And I'm one who thinks that's not an effective method of leadership, but I would advise anyone who's considering a university presidency to talk of a whole lot of people before they talk to me.
One of the things that certainly happened in this circumstance, and I suspect at least there's a lot of conversation in the larger community about the fear of this thing happening with increasing regularity, is the situation that occurred when members of the General Assembly requested a visit from those whose board of visitors terms were about to be renewed. And they were some pretty pointed remarks related to you and related to other issues as well.
They liked me, didn't they? Were they supportive?
No, apparently not.
Oh, okay. Right.
But I wonder, are we going to see more of that in your view across the country as we look at these issues of public universities?
Well, I hope not. It's a real challenge for public universities. I'm in a complicated position on this as one who has worked in public universities, one who is committed from the core to public universities and public mission, who has decided not to go the private route even when generously requested, because the notion of great world-class public universities is so crucial in a vibrant democracy. There are pros and cons with regard to public universities. To me, they are the crux of our future. Part of that is a sense of maybe democratic theory on my part. Much of it has to do with my own story, I think. As an administrator, my strongest goal has been the belief that we need to have not just private universities, but public universities compete at the highest levels of the American academy. Public universities, with all that entails, questions of access and equality, questions of public obligation, trying to do things like we've done so remarkably at the College of William and Mary in engaging the student body and the curriculum in the broad felt needs of the community that sustains us. I am sort of an advocate of public higher education to the bottom of my feet. Public education, however, opens a set of other challenges. That means you're going to deal with legislatures, and sometimes legislatures are going to be congenial in terms of traditional academic independence, and maybe sometimes they won't. I think generally speaking, our future is in strong, committed, life-changing public higher education. It makes it a complicated course. I'm sure that private higher education has its own challenges in terms of interference, but the academy is not well served by political interference of this sort. But your support comes from legislatures, and legislators are political folks, and they always will be, and that's no great surprise to anyone.
Necessary tension, one supposes. As a constitutional scholar, and I know that's a great passion for you and certainly the focus of so much of your research and your teaching, as you look abroad in the land, and this is another one that would take another half an hour, I just warn you about that ahead of time, where do you see the greatest threat or challenge to constitutional rights? Just look across the spectrum, and if we were sitting in your law class, what would you be talking about?
Well, of course, in a whole different realm, there are great threats or concerns, understandable concerns to be candid, about constitutional liberties post-September 11th. The demand, the tension between security and freedom is and remains at a complex point in our history. I think that traditional notions of equality, the open American door to equal opportunity is still at the heart of many of our largest problems. An issue of particular focus for me, and I hope for the nation, I certainly have been looking at this for over a decade, is the concern that we too easily, as a society, turn our gaze away. I like that phrase. I used to be friends with Paul Wellstone, and that's sort of how he would describe it. We turn our gaze away from those locked at the bottom, economically particularly, of American life. And that has very potent and troubling ramifications in the justice system, in education, both K-12, where we have sort of rich and poor public schools even, in higher education, in health care, in the way we live in gated communities versus living together, in the strength of a public sector. In politics, the relationship between money and politics. So for me, our willingness in law, in culture, in literature, in our academic study, to turn our gaze away from those who are having the most difficult time because of economic barriers is not consistent with what we say we are as Americans. I think other nations perhaps don't talk so much about equality and opportunity. We talk a lot about it, and we don't always do as good a job in carrying through as we should. So I think those are among the most profound issues that we face in the future.
Gene Nichol, I want to thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and may we look for you to be in the running for the presidency of UNC, or for now as the faculty?
I am going to the University of North Carolina to teach and to write. I will likely do some work on these issues that I describe. I'm not a candidate in the chancellor search. I have a near lust to work on issues that I care about and that I've been working on for a long time under my own pace, with my own desired depth and attention. And without having to worry so much about what the fellow next door may be thinking about what I'm thinking. So I look forward to that very much. My wife, by the way, has just received a Fulbright.
Fantastic.
So she'll be going to China in the spring, and I'm going to be chasing her back and forth a little bit. So
well, we sure wish you all well. Thank you so much. Well, Gene Nichol and his family are clearly ready to move on, and I certainly respect that. There have been so many loud voices on this issue, from those calling in very personal ways for Nichol's departure to the voices of students who are inspired by his ideals. But there's a softer voice that you couldn't hear as well, and that's the voice of the Reverend Holly Hollerith, the rector, the minister of Bruton Parish. That's on Duke of Gloucester Street, about a stone's throw from the college campus there. It was the Reverend Hollerith who noted that crosses weren't part of Anglican altars when the college was built. In fact, it wasn't until 1909 that Bruton got its own cross for its altar. 30 years later, when they got a new one, they gave the old one to the students at the Wren Chapel, where it's believed it was left there for convenience. In other words, said the Reverend Hollerith, the cross became a permanent object in Wren Chapel simply by accident. And so while Gene Nichol has freely admitted his handling of the Wren Cross episode might have been better, the beginning of the end was apparently an episode of majoring in minors, or at least that's how I see it. Now that the damage has been done, the search for a successor will begin this fall. What is needed is a relentlessly reflective, rigorous, transparent process to find a leader who will keep the college curious, engaging, challenging, and significant. It's a big job, and it probably won't leave much time for running to Richmond when some lawmakers don't like something they see on campus. And that is probably a very good thing. Well, we want to know what matters to you. So maybe you have a thought about this week's broadcast or a suggestion for a future show. Just send us an email at whatmatters@whro.org. You can also call us at 889-9437, or you can write to us at WHRO 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia 23508. Thanks for being with us on our inaugural broadcast. Next Friday night, a conversation about the region's dwindling transportation options. All that and more next Friday on What Matters. Thanks for being with us.